Hi guys, welcome to tonight's live. As we have everyone filter in, I'm just going to give a brief background of what we're going to be doing tonight and also share some really exciting news. So hang in there. We'll start cooking pretty shortly here. But tonight's dinner, I wanted to do something quick because now with like back to school and just everybody's schedule being crazy, I know I always like to have a really good, quick weeknight dinner kind of in my back pocket to use when I need it. So I wanted to share with you how to make risotto, which a lot of people, when you talk to them, they think risotto is very tough to make and they think it takes a long time. But in culinary school, we made this dish so many times and it honestly only takes about 30 minutes from start to finish once you have all of your ingredients measured out and ready to go. So in my opinion, that's pretty quick, which is awesome because not only can this dish look fancy, especially if you zhuzh up the presentation and you can use it for, a dinner party or something a little fancier, but it can also be great for a weeknight meal if you pair it. For me, I love pairing it with some chicken or some roasted veggies, just something really simple. It's classic. So we're going to be jumping into that tonight. And then of course, I had to make a cocktail, so we're also going to be making a limoncello Martini. So before we jump into that, I really am excited to share some awesome news. So if you're on my email list or you've been on social media, maybe peeping around, you might have already seen it, but I will be hosting a cooking retreat in southern Italy in 2025. So I'm very excited about this. It has been something that has been in the works for a little bit now. And if you have been on my journey at all from going to culinary school, we're actually going to be in the same location where I went. So it's a very exciting thing. Basically, it's hard to sum it all up, so I will give you a link where all the information is listed. But this is going to be the ultimate foodie vacation. For me, if I were to go back to Italy, this is literally exactly what I would want to do. We're going to be cooking, sightseeing, taste testing, drinking wine, all things revolving around the food culture of Italy. So if you've always dreamed of going to Italy and you love food as much as I do, this is going to be your literal perfect vacation. So to give you some highlights, it's going to be a 10-day ordeal and it's going to be in 2025. So I'm a planner. I need to have things on my calendar and I need to make sure that I have things budgeted and ready to go. So I wanted to give people enough time to decide if this was something that they could do. So it's not until 2025. It's going to be September 12th through the 21st. And basically, we're going to be doing all things food related. So one day we're going to a winery. We're going to teach you how to actually taste wine, how to pair it with food, and then of course get to sightsee around the different vineyards and all of that kind of stuff. And I also should mention that this trip is going to be in southern Italy in the region of Calabria. So this is a lesser traveled region in Italy, which I personally love because when I go on vacation, I always want to see things from a local's perspective, which honestly can be very hard to do if you don't know what to look for or where to go. But this is literally all planned for you, so you don't need to do any research. You can know that the food's going to be good, the restaurants we go to are going to be fun, and you're going to have a good time. So, okay, back to the itinerary. So in addition to the winery, we're also going to be going to Tropea, which is a seaside town in Calabria. It's beautiful. If you haven't done research on it, look up some pictures. It's a really gorgeous town and it's super fun. We're also going to be doing a lot of cooking and taste testing. So, of course, there are a lot of different trips that you can go on to see the historical ruins and buildings and architecture in Italy, but I really wanted to focus mine on food for people who love food. So this is going to be a lot of cooking demonstrations with some wine, of course, and also getting to just taste test and see how different authentic regional Italian cuisine is made. So I'm very excited about it. Some things we'll be making: pasta, of course. We're going to do a pizza party one night and we're going to hand make both the dough, and then you'll get to make your actual pizza and learn how to toss the pizza and cook it in a wood-fired oven. We'll be making risotto. We're gonna make cornetti, which are basically Italy's version of the croissant. We're gonna be making some cocktails. Really, there's something for everybody. And it was hard for me to narrow down like what to pick because I personally like everything. I like a little savory, a little baking, a little cocktails and wine. So it's gonna be a good variety if that's what you're into, and like you're gonna have something basically no matter what you like. So I hope that you're as excited about this as I am. I have a whole web page on the information with what we're going to be doing, and I wanted to, like I said, give you some time to really see if this is something that is right for you. So tickets aren't going to go on sale for a while. They'll be going on sale September 23rd. So you have some time to, if you want to look into this, ask questions, see if this would be something you're interested in. You've got time, so don't worry. I will definitely answer emails if you want to shoot me an email if you have questions. But yeah, that's the exciting news. So we are going to go ahead and jump into everything that we're doing tonight, just so that way we can kind of make this snappy since everyone, I'm sure, is busy on Sunday night. So to jump into things, we're going to start out with our limoncello lemon drop martini. So it's a twist on lemon drop using limoncello. And this is from, if you've like visited the Amalfi Coast, this is very popular there. I know a lot of people also make limoncello at home. So a good limoncello should just be some kind of base spirit. A lot of times it's vodka, especially if you make it at home, lemon, and then sugar to sweeten it. That's kind of how you know. I don't really have a brand that I necessarily like. I actually don't love this one just because it has dye in it. But it was kind of one of the only options for me this time around. So if you're kind of struggling with what type of limoncello to buy, look at the ingredients on the pack and just see, because you don't want there to be a lot of ingredients. So to start out, you're going to need a cocktail shaker. We're going to just go ahead and add some ice in there. Now this is shaken, and that's because this recipe uses lemon juice, and so when you have lemon juice in a cocktail, you want to shake it instead of stirring. Okay, so we're starting out with 2 ounces or 60 milliliters of our limoncello. And again, always measure. Your cocktail is just going to taste so much better if you measure it. It's going to be a lot more balanced and equal, so take the time to measure if you can. Okay, next we're using lemon juice. I always use freshly squeezed juice. It just tastes better. It has more flavor. But if you need to use the bottled kind, it's fine. I won't tell anybody. But I always try to do fresh. Okay, so we're doing 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of this. Adding that into the cocktail shaker. And then this is a sweeter martini. So I go ahead and do 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of simple syrup. If you don't like sweet, you can feel free to pass on this or just add in a little bit less. Cocktails are all about making it how you prefer to drink it, so don't be afraid to change things up, especially if you see, recipes around the internet that you have not personally created. Okay, and then we're going in with some vodka. I do 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters, just a splash. All right, and that's it. 4-ingredient cocktail. We love something easy. Again, tonight, all about easy. Okay, so we're going to shake this up for about 15 to 30 seconds, just until your shaker is nice and cold. All right. Okay, so with a martini, it's going to be served straight up, so no ice. So I like to chill my glass beforehand. I put mine in the freezer for a little bit, but you can also chill it by adding some ice and water and then dumping that out right before you're ready to serve. Now another trick for a martini is to double strain it. So I like to use a hawthorn and a mesh strainer, and the mesh strainer just catches any little ice chips, so that way you have a really silky smooth martini. Alright. And then optionally, you can add some lemon for garnish if you want a little lemon or if you want to put one on top. Either way works. So cheers. I love this. This is one of my favorites, especially like in the summer when you're looking for something easy to drink and bright. This is great. So keep this in your back pocket if you need a good cocktail to shake up on the weekend. Okay, so now that we have got our cocktail done, we are gonna go ahead and switch over to the risotto. So before we go and do that, we need to get some things started. So I went ahead and prepped our vegetable stock on the stove. It's warming up. So the purpose of that is you want to make sure that you use hot stock when you're making risotto to avoid having a really gummy texture. So that was going, I put that on right before we started. And then the other thing we need to talk about is the rice. So with our rice, in Italy, we learned to use carnaroli rice or violoni nano rice. These can be kind of hard to find if you don't live near an Italian market or if you don't want to, order something on Amazon and ship it to your house. But this is the rice that we were always taught to use. Basically, the reason being is that arborio rice, which is what we're going to use today just because it's very convenient and it's easy to find, it has a bigger slit in the rice than these other types of rice. So it can get a little starchier and firm up a lot easier if it sits for a while. So that's why it's suggested to use these different types of rice. And if you saw it on my website, I have these linked so you can remember the names for later. But arborio is just easy to find. And again, we're trying to not make things complicated with weeknight dinners. I want something I can grab at Walmart, get really easily. So we're going to use arborio today, but I just wanted you to know that little fun fact. There are a lot of things with Italian cooking that when I was in culinary school we learned, and it's kind of like you have to see what works and adapt to obviously what you can find and what's available for you. So don't feel bad if you need to substitute for arborio rice. That's what I'm using today. So we're going to head over to the stove so I can show you how to make this. So we're going to switch cameras. Bear with us one sec. Take a sip of your cocktail while we switch them over. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep this at 30 minutes. So we're at 6:15 right now. So let's see how long this takes, because I don't want you to think that I'm lying to you that this is a quick dinner. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is we are gonna add some butter to a pan. I like to just turn it on medium heat to kind of get this butter melted. Now I always use unsalted butter just because salted butter isn't actually regulated. So it can have different percentages of salt. So I prefer to just use unsalted butter and then salt it myself. Now rice does need quite a bit of salt in order to taste really good and have flavor. So if you use salted butter, that's not an issue at all. Just make sure that you're reducing the amount of salt that I call for in the recipe. So, and food is all about tasting as you go and seeing kind of how it tastes along the way. So you can always adjust to your personal preferences and your taste. So like I said, right now we're gonna work on melting this butter. Now there's two butters that we use in the recipe. We're gonna melt this, and then we also have some butter that's cubed, and this butter is actually frozen. So you kind of have to think a little bit ahead and put this in the freezer for a few minutes. And we're gonna add this towards the end of the dish, like after all of the rice is cooked. This is a really cool tip that we learned in culinary school, so I'm excited to share this with you. It really finishes off the dish and gives it really great flavor and texture at the end. So, okay, so while this is melting, once it's fully melted, we're gonna go ahead and add in the rice. As a warning, make sure that your heat is not too high, because the next step is toasting our rice, and we really want to ensure that it does not brown during this step. So even if you turn your heat to medium, just know your stove and make sure that your stove isn't too hot and isn't browning the rice during this process. Now the reason we toast the rice is to seal that split that I was talking about. So when you seal that split, it helps ensure that there's not too much starch leaking out into your risotto. So this only takes a couple minutes, And as you can see, currently the rice is very white and it's opaque. So we're gonna take it from this to translucent during this cooking process. And I'll show you kind of what it looks like as it gets to the right consistency. So, okay, do we have any questions? Feel free to add your questions if you have anything in the comments, and I will definitely try to answer them. Okay, so this takes maybe 2 to 3 minutes, depending on your stove. You can see even now, let's see. Let's pick out a piece that's kind of getting translucent. Okay. You can see now it's even, can you see that? How it's starting to get a little bit translucent compared to the opaque white. So that's what we're going for as we're toasting it. And then with your broth to the side, we need all of this broth, so make sure it's not just like boiling, like pasta water. You don't just want to have it boiling because it will evaporate. So once it's kind of gotten hot, I like to turn my heat down to low just to keep it warm, but not so it bubbles off. And with this stock, you want to make sure that you're getting something that has really good taste because the stock is giving the rice so much flavor. So you can either, I like the Swanson brand, or you can make your own, but just make sure you get stock and not broth because stock is going to have better flavor in it. Okay, so this is kind of the tedious part, but after this, we don't have to do too much. Okay, so if you look in here, there's not any browning. See, all of it is still very light and it's starting to get more and more translucent. So we're gonna let this go a couple more minutes. And in the meantime, the next thing you want to grab is your wine. So for this recipe, we are using white wine, and similar to the vegetable stock, this is adding a lot of flavor, so make sure that you're using wine that has good flavor. You want to use a dry white wine. If it's too sweet, you don't want that. That's going to make the risotto sweet, and that's not what we're going for. So get something that's dry and get something that you would want to drink. Because usually wine that we want to drink is typically better quality. So that's kind of how you can gauge what wine to use in this. Now, if you don't want to add the wine, that's fine, you can omit it, but you might have to add a little bit more stock kind of to compensate for it. We are going to cook most of this off, so if it's one of those things where like you don't love wine, but an aftertaste is fine, you should be fine with this, but if you don't drink, you can just omit it. Okay, so we're getting to the point that the rice is looking pretty clear. I'll show you. You can see that it's getting a lot more clear and you can see through it compared to the opaque one. So we're at a pretty good point with this. I'm gonna scoop this back in. Amount makes about 6 servings. So for me, since there's 2 of us, usually we'll eat it for dinner and then have a couple leftovers. It's kind of the perfect amount in my opinion. Okay, so next we're gonna go ahead and add in this white wine. And I love the smell when you add in wine to whatever you're cooking. This is also going to be kind of on medium heat, so we're going to let this reduce until there's no wine left. Again, we're just adding it for flavor, so it takes only a couple minutes for this to kind of cook down and to cook off. So while that's going, I always like to make sure that we have everything prepped. So if you're cooking along with me, make sure that you have a ladle, because we'll need a ladle in order to ladle our hot stock into the risotto. Now, oftentimes when people think of risotto, like I said, they think that it takes a really long time. But what we learned in culinary school was that basically from the time you start adding your stock in until it's finished, it only takes 16 minutes. So again, we're already only at 6:22. We should be good on timing as far as me keeping my promise for this being a 30-minute meal. So you can already see that the wine has absorbed. It's crazy how like fast this happens. So see, there's no wine like at the bottom. It's all absorbed into the rice. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and add in a stock. Now I call for specific cup measurements in my recipe on the website, but honestly, I just do it by eye. And once you learn to do it by eye, it's very easy to just kind of see what it looks like and go from there. So basically what we want to do is add enough hot stock that it's completely covering the rice. So you can see it's not covering it a ton, but kind of just enough. So what we need to do right now is wait and let the rice absorb that stock. I'm gonna go ahead and start a timer for 16 minutes. This is just gonna kind of keep us on track and make sure we know how long to cook it. Now, if you've eaten risotto in Italy, you'll know that it's a very dense rice and it has a bite to it. Similar to al dente pasta, that's how their risotto is. It has a bite. It's not so mushy, you know. We also in America eat our pasta and our rice very mushy. This is. You still want it to have a little bit of a bite. So that's how the timer, especially if you're new to making risotto, it will kind of help you keep track to make sure you're not overcooking this. So during this process, we're just gonna watch. We don't want the stock to all be absorbed like the wine. We want it to only absorb a little, and then once we notice that the stock is no longer covering the rice, that's where we're gonna go ahead and add a little bit more stock. Again, I usually do just like a ladle full, but it could be maybe around half of a cup. I have, again, specific instructions on my website if you're somebody that needs like the exact measurements. So we'll go ahead and give this a stir. And you can see right now that, see, it's just starting to be where we have a little bit of rice showing on the top. So this is our sign to go ahead and another ladle. Now the great thing about this risotto is that once you learn how to master this kind of base recipe, because tonight we're just making a Parmesan risotto, so very simple, very straightforward. But once you learn how to master this, it's really fun to add in different fruit or different vegetables that are in season to kind of change up the flavor. So on my website, I have one that uses asparagus, which is great for the springtime. I also made one with pumpkin, which I know it's not pumpkin season yet, but I wanted to get it up prior to fall because I know there are lots of fall girlies out there who love their pumpkin. So I have a pumpkin risotto on my website as well. So it's really easy to change up the flavor. One of the girls who I went to culinary school with was just telling me that she added corn in hers, which would be so good right now while that's in season. And then you can also change up the cheese. So if you don't like Parmesan, I have one that uses goat cheese. It's really easy just to substitute for kind of whatever you're feeling that night or whatever is in season. Okay, so back to the risotto for a second. We can see that the rice has absorbed more. So we're going to go ahead and add in another ladle. And we're at about 13 minutes left of cooking. So at this point, you just kind of have to sit here and monitor the risotto. I know I said it was 30 minutes. I guess the downside to this dish is that once it starts cooking, you do have to be pretty active at the stove to make sure that you're watching it and that like you can add more stock as it needs it. So that's the one downside, but 16 minutes, that's a breeze. I know I've stood over the stove for a lot longer than that to make different things. So, okay, checking the comments just to see if anyone else has questions. Okay, cool. Oh, I'm glad you guys are liking the risotto. All right. So let's see, what other tips do I have for you? So, like I mentioned earlier with risotto, it really needs to be seasoned properly in order to have a lot of taste because rice by itself doesn't really have a taste. So make sure that when you do risotto, you always season it, which we'll do at the end, but I'm just reminding you because there has been times where I forget to season it and I eat it and I'm like, wait, why does this taste very good? And that's usually why, because I forgot to season it. All right. And this is gonna when you have to add your stock is going to vary depending on your stove, what rice you use, how much stock you added the first time. So it's kind of just a go by the feel kind of recipe. So you can see here, if you bring it in, again, there's like a little on top, but not a ton. So I'm going to go ahead and add in another ladle of stock. This uses about 32 ounces or 907 grams of stock. But if you notice that you need a little bit more, that's totally fine. The big thing with this risotto is that you don't want to cook it to death, like I mentioned, but you also don't want it to cook up all of the liquid right away, because all that liquid, it helps kind of give it a good mouthfeel and also make sure that the texture stays really nice. So even when we're done, we still want it to be a little bit soupy. And like I mentioned, if you're hosting a dinner party or something where you kind of have to pour and then it has to sit for a little bit, I definitely recommend using the carnaroli rice, because it will withstand sitting for a little bit, as opposed to the arborio rice kind of like firms up a little bit quicker. Now, let's see. And I also have recommendations if you want to kind of make this recipe in batches, or you need to make a bigger batch for a dinner party, how much rice I would suggest serving per person, if that's of interest to you. But I do like making this just for like a fancier dinner as well, because I think people are really impressed by risotto, and they think it sounds really fancy. And honestly, like, it is, you know, if you go to Italy and you get a plate of risotto, it's very impressive. But it's just not hard to make. So that's kind of the thing that people don't know. All right, we're at about 9 minutes left, so I think we're doing good. We added another ladle of stock, and we still have, honestly, a decent amount of stock left. So that will be good, because we need to just make sure that we have enough to continually cover the rice for that whole time. All right. Now, in terms of like when this is typically served in Italy, so typically if you're going to an Italian, like a restaurant or a dinner that somebody's hosting at their house, this would be served as like a primo. So that would be, it would actually be before you would serve your meat, before you would serve your vegetables. Usually the primo is either risotto or some kind of pasta, and that's actually like the first dish. If you do appetizers, of course, those would be before, but this is usually served as a first dish, which I think is kind of like weird to our American brains, because usually we would think of this being served kind of like alongside meat and vegetables, but no, typically it's served first. And like I said, if you're interested in making this for a dinner party, I also have a whole blog post about the different courses that they serve at an Italian dinner and kind of how that goes, if you want suggestions for that there. I love dinner parties, and I feel like they're very fun to put together, but they definitely are a lot of work. Okay, so it's kind of the same old once you get the hang of adding in the broth. And you can see at this point kind of how soupy it looks. And you can definitely feel free to taste kind of as we're going along, just to see how the rice differs when we have like 7 minutes left versus when we have it completely done and we've done the whole 16 minutes. I always like to taste along the way, because then you're kind of seeing, you know, what things taste like as you cook them, and I think it gives you a better understanding of what the texture is supposed to be like. So it's still very hard, but like a lot of bite. So we're doing good on timing in terms of like making sure that we're cooking it right. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Have you guys made risotto before? I'm curious. Oh, yay, okay. So timing wise, we're at 6:30, so we're still doing good with our 30 minutes. Let's see, okay. What questions does everyone have? Anything? Any questions? I feel like I'm running out of things to tell you guys about risotto. It's kind of a rinse and repeat thing, so it's very easy, but I would say in culinary school, like the biggest mistakes people were making is probably under seasoning it, because we would be in a rush and we would be trying to like plate it and do it and not season it, so watch out for that. And then also I think if you're just not used to eating it with a firm bite, you could definitely mess that up and overcook it. But like I said, with the timer, I think that you'll be really good at ensuring that it's like actually cooking to the proper texture. All right. Okay, so let me tell you, while this is cooking, a little bit more about their treat, just because I'm personally very excited about it. Okay, so in terms of like why I feel like you would love it, the retreat is going to be for anybody who really loves food. I know whenever I go on vacation, like all I pretty much care about is food, trying the different local food, seeing different restaurants, going to, you know, like little dessert shops. Like I love a good ice cream or gelato shop on vacation. And so I really wanted to kind of create this retreat for anybody who loves food as much as I do and like wants to center their vacation around food. Of course, we will be also like sightseeing and doing other things, like I said, but it's just all gonna be around food and about food because that's my favorite thing. So what I mentioned that we were gonna do some different pastas, so I'm really excited about that just because I think so often when you go to Italy, you immediately think of pasta and pizza. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hand making pasta. So we'll show you how to make two different types of dough, both a northern dough, which uses egg yolk, and a southern dough, which has no eggs in it. And then we're going to be showing you how to make different kinds of shapes. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Italian cooking, it's very regionally based. So every region in Italy has different shapes and different types of like sauces that they pair with their pasta. So we're going to show you how to make lots of different kind of pasta, including kind of the Trinity pasta in Rome, which includes cacio e pepe and carbonara. So that will be really fun. And then also, like I mentioned, we're going to be doing pizza. So pizza was one of the things I really liked because I think it's so practical to be able to come home and like make pizza for yourself. And pizza is one of those things that's hard because there's not very many different ingredients to it. So you really have to make sure that you have a good dough and that you have like a good base to your pizza. So I'm excited for that. And like I mentioned, we're gonna have a whole pizza party, drink. So in Italy, it's custom to drink beer with pizza, which I didn't know. I thought it was wine, but no, it's beer. And then they also like to eat French fries as an appetizer, which is also not something I realized. So yeah, we're gonna do a whole themed party for that as well. And then I've been posting gelato recipes recently, and I know a lot of people have been loving those. So I wanted to also include some gelato in the course and in the retreat. So we're gonna be going over how to make gelato, of course doing a gelato sampling. I mean, that's the most important part, right? So yeah, it's gonna be really fun. I'm very excited for it, and like I mentioned, I'm trying to make it give you a little time to just see budget-wise, planning-wise, if you have the time to go. So yeah, definitely check out that webpage. We'll link where that will be at the end of the live. So okay, we are coming to we have about 2 minutes left on our timer. So at this point, you can see we're kind of ready for our one last dump of stock. So I'm going to go ahead and just put all of that in. Now at this point, we'll give it a couple more minutes to cook. But we're going to go ahead and taste it and just see where we're at, because it should be around 16 minutes, but just in case, you know, we need a little bit more time, we'll kind of know that by tasting it. Very hot. See, this is how you know if you're a chef, if you can just put like hot food right in your mouth. Okay, so it's a lot softer than it was last time, but still definitely has a bite to it. So we're good at this point, and like I mentioned, you want it to be a little bit liquidy still, like we're at here, because if it's too firm at this stage, when we go to the cheese and the butter, it's gonna just completely seize up. So you do want a little stock still, just like we have here. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna bring it back over to our main station, and then we'll add in the final touches. So we gotta change the camera one more time, so bear with us. Okay, so to finish this up, first we are going to add in our cheese. This is just Parmesan cheese. I always recommend freshly grating it if you can. The grated or the pre-grated Parmesan has an anti-caking agent in it, so sometimes it can get like a little bit sticky and it doesn't melt as well. And then next, like I remembered, seasoning, we are going to add in kosher salt and black pepper. And you can season this to taste. I kind of have a ratio that I like, which I included in the recipe, but of course, feel free to adjust as needed. Okay, a question. If you are adding peeled shrimp, do you ever cook it from raw in the rice, or do you add pre-cooked proteins? So that's a great question. You could so I wouldn't cook it with the rice. I would probably cook it with the stock. And then from there, once you kind of see that like the stock has absorbed all of that and it's cooked, then you can kind of put the shrimp to the side, because you don't want the shrimp to overcook when you're cooking it in the risotto. But you could definitely kind of like boil that with the stock if you want. In terms of that, like I would probably use a seafood stock instead of a vegetable stock if you wanted to like really enhance that flavor. But you could definitely also just like pair them together at the end once they're made. But make sure that you're using like raw shrimp and not pre-cooked shrimp. I know a lot of people like to do that, but then it's definitely going to get rubbery and overcooked. So, good question. Okay. Ooh, make an e-cookbook with different risotto flavors. I love that idea. Okay, so now we're going to add in our frozen butter. Mine's a little soft just because it's been sitting out, but theoretically you could take it right out of the freezer when you're ready. And then we're just going to add this in. And this is again a trick that we learned in culinary school to make sure that the dish is flavored really nicely and has a good texture. So this is going to kind of slowly melt in, and you'll notice that it will help keep the risotto soft, so that way it's not firming up with all the starch. So that really helps, and it just gives it obviously like a nice flavor. Butter always tastes really good, so that is an important piece as well. Okay, now in Italy, they also at this stage will fluff their risotto. So they'll move this, kind of fluff it. I can never get it down because I don't have counters that are heat proof. But if you do, it's easy to kind of fluff it, and that again just like helps with the texture. But I usually skip it just because my counters don't want to withstand the heat of this, and it's hard to do it on like a hot pad. Okay, so now at this point we are ready to plate. So I like to use a ladle, and this is another trick that we learned. So to plate risotto, you'll grab a ladle and you'll put a big kind of blob in the middle of your plate, and then you're going to use your hand to plate the risotto and kind of tap it around the plate. You want it in like a really thin layer. And this is another trick that kind of makes your risotto a little bit more authentic. And then you can garnish it however you want. So if you want to add some additional cheese, you can feel free to do that. If you have some fresh herbs from your garden, our garden, the herbs did not work out this year, so I'm very sad about that. But if you do, you could have that. And then you can also add some like infused olive oil on top. So this is garlic olive oil, and it just finishes the dish really, really nicely. Okay, so we're gonna taste it because I know during my last live I forgot to taste it. I got too flustered. So dig in. If you guys are cooking along, I hope that your risotto is ready too. I love it. The garlic oil, I'm telling you, makes it so much better. And it just has such great flavor. Italian food is often very simple. It has minimal ingredients, but when you use really great ingredients, you're gonna get a really great final product. So I hope you enjoy this. It's 6:44, so we started at like 6:20, so actually a little bit under 30 minutes, you know, once you have all your things prepped and ready to go. So I hope that this dish will be something that you can make for your family on weeknights. I hope that you enjoy it. Let's see. Okay, if you have any other questions, definitely throw them in the chat now. I'm trying to be better about looking at the chat as well. But anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Definitely check out all the things for the cooking retreat next September if that's something you're interested in. If you want to come travel and cook with me, I would be honored to have you. It's going to be so much fun. In addition to cooking, I mean, when I went to culinary school, I came back with friends that I feel like are going to be lifelong friends. They better be. If you're watching this, you guys better be. So yeah, I think this will be a great trip. If you don't have anybody to travel with and you want to come solo, you will most definitely meet people on this trip. And, you know, like, we're going to have a good time. We're going to drink wine. We are going to eat a lot of good food, and I'm very excited. So I hope if you're able to join me that you can look into that more. Let me know if you have any questions. And of course, all these recipes for tonight, the cocktail and the risotto, are on my website. So if you want to make those, if you didn't make it tonight, definitely check those out. So thanks for joining me. I'm excited. And yeah, I'll let you know about the live for next month. All right, bye guys.